humans, and welcome back to my channel. So recently I've been getting quite a few questions from you in my Instagram that you want to know about how do you find a PhD supervisor, or what is the process of applying for a PhD. Now, I have done a video on how to apply for a PhD, so I will add that in below, but this video in particular, I'm going to walk you through how I found my supervisor in a very step-by-step process, because it can be a little confusing and it's definitely not as obvious as when you apply for a master's or for a undergrad degree. So let's get on with the video. One of the first things I would do when I was looking for supervisors is, because I had no idea of which universities I wanted to go to, I went to the QS Top Universities site and basically went down their list of good universities for my subject. So my subject is obviously English literature. We find that on this list here, English language and literature. And this is going to list all the countries in the world by order of how good they are at that subject. And I basically went through this and just highlighted any universities that were interesting to me. I think I limited it to the top 50 because otherwise you could be here forever just going through and through the university list. So we can see my current university, University of Birmingham, is 36 in the world for English literature. And basically I would make a list of these universities.
I would just write down universities to apply for. Okay, so UCL. Let's put UCL down. King's College London, Duke University, University of Sydney, University of York, University of Manchester.
So when I had about 10 universities I was interested in, I would stop making my list because I've got everything I need from this website. And then I created a very exciting Excel document. Now, obviously I did this 2 years ago. I don't have my original document anymore. So you're going to have to make do with my quickly created one for this purposes. So all I would do, now that I've got the universities I'm interested in, is I would go to those university websites. And basically what you want to do is you want to go to the department that you're interested in studying at. Probably the easiest way to do that is just type in the name of the course you're looking at. So in this case, English literature. We want to go for the Department of English Literature. And then what you want to do is you want to go to their staff page. Now, this is a lot of people to look through. I didn't look through these people in detail. What I did is I found some key words that were relevant to my course. So for me, one of them was queer. So instantly I can see, oh, okay, Dr. Ronna Cran is a lecturer in 20th century American literature and looks at the culture of New York City, queer writing and modern American poetry. So I would then flag her, anybody who at this point had one of my keywords, they would just go in here. So Dr. Ronna Cran, university is UOB, research interests is American poetry, queer writing and New York City culture, literature. I'll put literature. Let's see who else we've got. We have got, okay, she's the only one who actually comes up with queer. So we've got romance. So Dr. Amy Burge, which is my current supervisor. So you can see this is exactly what I did because she comes up. So again, we've got Dr. Amy Burge, UOB, interests are romance fiction, gender, ethnicity, and sexuality. So for Birmingham, that's all I'd put here. Now let's take another one of those universities off this list just to show you that this method works with other places. So, University of Manchester. Again, we just want to search English literature. And then English literature and creative writing. Most universities will have a staff page. You just have to, there you go. This one, they call it people. Now, this one is not as useful because they don't give you little descriptions straight away. Now that makes it a little bit harder. We can't use our method, but there are some people immediately we can dismiss. Anyone who says Renaissance literature, medieval literature, they're not our people. So instead you click on everyone else and then we just go through these people again. What you want to look at is their research. And again, we just use our little system. Okay, he does queer stuff. So I put him down on my list. So Dr. David Alderson, and he's actually written a book that I've read. He's pretty good. So Dr. David Alderson, he's at Manchester and he looks at gender, sexuality, and the transition to neoliberalism in relation to literature, film and television. We'll do one more person just from Manchester. Let's see, Howard Booth. So again, we'll use the method. Queer, no. Romance, no. Not interested. Dr. Professor Laura Dunn, queer. Okay, stuff is coming up here. So yeah, so she does things related to history, lesbian culture. She mentions the well of loneliness. So she's someone worth putting down. Basically, you want to keep doing this process until you've got a really good list of people. And what I would say is once you've got your, what I would call a starter list, there are some people you're immediately going to dismiss. So for me, I knew I wanted to do my PhD on queer romance novels. Therefore, although Dr. Rona Cran does American poetry, queer writing and New York City literature and culture, that's not that relevant to what I'm doing. I don't do poetry. I'm not looking in particular at New York. So the only real crossover here is queer writing. So we'll immediately dismiss her. Gender, sexuality and neoliberalism in literature, film and television, that could be relevant. What we would probably need to do is go more on his profile. What I would say is his research is not necessarily super relevant to what I do. However, there is crossover here. He is looking at queer stuff. He is looking at cultural things, popular culture. There is no mention of romance, but he's someone that is potentially worth me flagging and emailing. The same with Professor Laura Doan. Now, I know this because I did email both these people. Again, they're not focused on romance, but they are looking at queer writing, queer literature, queer culture in a contemporary, popular culture way. So that's why I emailed both these people. And basically what I did is when I went through this, I ranked everyone, I got their email address, and I went through and ranked. So obviously Amy Berg was one of my top ones. Let's just give these people, there we go. Let's say this was the rank I put. And then I would work down and contact them in that order. Now, the other thing I did, apart from this, is I actually found a journal that was super useful to me. So again, as I wanted to do romance, and I knew I wanted to do romance, I went to the Journal of Popular Romance Studies. And what I did here, now I obviously chose the Journal of Popular Romance Studies because it was relevant to me, but you need to find a journal that works for you. And what I suggest you do is you go through the volumes, so let's say volume number 9, and what you want to do is you want to look at the articles and see who's writing them. Because if this is a journal in your field, these are people who are writing in your field. These are people who could be potential supervisors for you. So just as we did with the academics we found for the departments, we want to add them to that overall list and rank them and see how relevant they are to our research in further detail when we look them up online. So once you have a list of academics collected, obviously I've just got 4 because this is just to show you the process. And once you've ranked them all, the thing you need to do, the way you need to rank them is how closely connected are they to your research? How useful do you think they will be as a supervisor? How do what they research cross over with you? Anybody who doesn't cross over, delete them. Anybody who is at a university that doesn't make sense for you to go to, whether it's a language barrier, whether you just think it's too far away, delete them. So edit your list, come up with a final ranking, and then start emailing these people based on that ranking, starting from the first and going down to the bottom as needed. So once you've found supervisors that you are interested in approaching, the next question I often get from everyone in the comments or my DMs is, but how do I email them? What should that email look like? What do I tell them? So I'm going to show you the very first email I sent to my current supervisor. So you want to be polite. So you say dear, and you say their full sort of title. If they're a professor, you would put professor. If they're a doctor, etc. Then you want to do a little bit about yourself, and you want to keep this very brief. So I put, I've recently graduated from the University of Edinburgh with a Master's in Literature and Modernity, 1900 to the present. I'm still waiting for my official result, but I'm on track to achieve a merit. I also obtained a first with honours from the University of Hull in English Literature with History of Art for my undergraduate degree. So that is very simply giving her my educational background, what I did for my Masters, what I did for my undergrad, what I achieved. We don't need any more than that at this stage. I'm hoping to start a PhD in English Literature with a focus on queer romances. Since completing my Masters, I've been exploring English departments where I can work on this topic. That's what we've just shown you how to do. I was exploring all those English departments. I came across your book Representing Difference in the Medieval and Modern Orientalist Romance while researching my master's dissertation, which focused on transgressive heterosexuality in romance novels of the 1990s. Now, this is where you want to link some of their work and show that you have an interest in their work to what you have previously done. So I actually did look at Dr. Amy Burgess representing difference in the medieval and modern Orientalist romance while researching my master's, because she said some stuff on sexuality. So I put that in there. You will need to go through and find connections with people, and if you've come across their work, if you've read it, you know, anything you can do to sort of show a bit more why you've reached out to them. Then you want to go into your project. So my specific project will likely focus on the construction of queer identities by romance writers of the 21st century, and I'm particularly interested in exploring the question of how and why queer identities have been constructed in this popular genre. So that is a one-sentence summary of my whole project. At this point, that is all they need. You don't want to do long paragraphs about this is my project, this is what I want to do, this is why I think it's important. Save that for later. At the moment, you are doing very introductory stuff just to see if it's something they would be interested in. And then to end it off, you say, I hope you don't mind my getting in touch, but I'd like to inquire whether you are currently accepting PhD students. That's an important sentence to put in because not everybody will be accepting PhD students. There is a limit on the number of PhD students academics can supervise, and they also might be about to go on sabbatical, they might be about to retire. So it's always good just to do a sentence like that and not assume that they are taking on PhD students. If you are, would you be willing to talk to me a bit more by email or on the phone about my PhD plans? ? I know you're very busy, so I appreciate any time you can give me. Thanks very much. Sincerely, Lucy Elizabeth Hargrave. So what we've done there is we've very politely just said a little bit about our background, a little bit about why we've approached them, a little bit about the project, and then just said, would they want to talk further? We've not assumed they want to talk further. We've not assumed and given them loads of information that they might not want. And that's pretty much it. And basically, if they get back to you, you will then start having a conversation. And that's how I found my supervisors. Now, there was some cases where I would email people and they would get back to me and said, oh, I really like your project. I don't think it's quite the right fit for my university. Have you spoken to this person? Or, oh, I'll email this person on your behalf because I think they would be interested in supervising your project. That does happen. That's perfectly normal. I had that happen to me a couple of times and it's not something to be dissuaded by. I would also say I have 2 supervisors currently. I found my second supervisor, Deborah Longworth, through Amy because she basically said, Deborah in my department is also interested in romance. I think it would be great if she came on as a second supervisor. That is also a perfectly normal way to find your second supervisors, kind of through the recommendations of your first supervisor. Some people I know have 3 supervisors. It's the same method. And that is the process. I hope you found it useful. I hope it makes it a bit clearer about how you can go and find a supervisor. This is obviously just how I found my supervisors. There are a couple of different methods, but this one worked for me and I found a supervisor I really liked. I found 2 supervisors I really liked. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, leave them below, or any future video ideas, always happy to hear them as well. And yeah, like, subscribe, all that jazz, you know what you're doing. And I'll see you next Sunday. Bye.